How many spoons do you have? Not these, but we'll get back to them. I'm talking about spoon theory, which again is a personal essay in 2003 by Christine Miserandino, and is a metaphor for how many chronically ill and disabled people describe their daily routines. So why is this useful for you to know? It's useful to know if you want to know how to better love the disabled and chronically ill people in your life. Given that, 1 in 4 people are disabled in the United States, there's definitely someone in your life you're fundamentally not understanding. Now, if you're 20-something and able-bodied, you probably have very little experience with disability or chronic illness, except for maybe, the few odd months you broke a bone or you had, interactions with older relatives. And so the reality of it can be very different and I think very shocking to people. The people I feel that love me most and see me most understand. Even if it means that they don't understand it fully, they understand a little bit more about me. I like this image. I think it describes it really well. The essay itself is a pretty short essay. I recommend reading it. There's a free PDF that's available. The basic of this theory is that you have a specific amount of energy to do your tasks for the day, represented by spoons, right? And so that you often have to sacrifice a lot of things and meticulously plan the day to deal with your lack of spoons. Now, I can't speak for other disabled people, but I can tell you what my experience is, and as someone who's been chronically ill for the past few years, that I use a spoon metaphors frequently between me and my friends. Now, the spoon to energy analogy can vary for everyone, right? Keep that in mind. But let's say each time you do something, you have to use a spoon, right? It's almost like a video game transaction. But getting up is 1 spoon. Brushing your teeth is another spoon. Breakfast 2, going to work, let's say 5, and so forth and so forth. And now this is usually fine for able-bodied people because they don't have to worry about the amount of spoons that they have. Unless they're doing something very physically taxing like exercising, they usually end up staying within their spoon levels. They don't really have to worry about it until you get older. And some things can be neutral, some things can even give you back spoons. A part of why it's a good metaphor is because it really allows for kind of the nebulous and really unexpected nature of disability, which can change with time, age, injury, illness, so many things. It's hardly ever a metric that stays still, which I don't think a lot of able people tend to think about. And maybe for someone, brushing their teeth isn't even a spoon, but brushing their hair is. We all have different capacities for different things. For me, a shower is relatively low spoons, but there are definitely some days where it takes nearly all my spoons to do. Or dishes used to be a really high spoon thing, and now it's fairly low. It changes with time. You can take spoons from the next day, but you will have to pay back those spoons at some point. And it usually means a worse flare that will take more spoons to recover from. So throughout the essay, the author is talking to a friend who just doesn't get it, right? This friend is able-bodied. So she gets a bunch of spoons, and she starts going through this friend's day, right? Using the spoons metaphor. And slowly but surely, the friend gets disheartened with the realization of the metaphor. Towards the end of this day, the friend is unable to work, as that would take more spoons than possible. At the end of the pretend day, she has to choose whether to spend her last spoon on either making dinner or being able to clean pots, driving to get food or driving home safely, cleaning up your space or doing something fun. Eventually, the realization hits that you must sacrifice something. And different things can affect your spoons, right? Especially if you're disabled. But even if you're not, you're also being affected by your energy levels. Temperature, there was a recent heat wave, and that definitely took a lot of people's spoons, right? Weather, or especially with different climate changes that are happening now. I live in fire territory, so that always ends up taking a few. And disease. Now we have a big surge of recently disabled people due to COVID, and that could be its own thing. That people who now have much less capacity than they were able to previously. It's a short essay. I recommend reading it, but if not, here's a small quote from it. I rarely see her emotional, so when I saw her upset, I knew maybe I was getting through to her. I didn't want my friend to be upset, but at the same time, I was happy to finally think that maybe somebody understood me a little bit. She had tears in her eyes and asked quietly, "Christine, how do you do it? Do you really do this every day?" I explained that some days were worse than others. Some days I have more spoons than most. But I can never make it go away, and I can't forget about it. I have always had to think about it. I handed her a spoon I'd been holding in reserve. I said simply, "I have learned to live life with an extra spoon in my pocket, in reserve. You always need to be prepared." And even something simple as taking a walk, right? It's not so simple. So you just can't go at the pace of everyone else. That'll kill you. You can't just take a walk. You have to wonder, what's the weather? What's the air quality? Is this terrain safe for me to walk? Especially if you have different mobility issues. And this doesn't even begin to take into account social or poverty stressors. Like, how much more spoons does it take to go grocery shopping if you have to budget down to the cent? How many more spoons is a walk because you're worried for your safety in public? Another quote, I have to attack it and make a plan, like I'm strategizing a war. It is in that lifestyle the difference between being sick and healthy. It is the beautiful ability to not think and just do. It's a useful framework because it shapes the language away from an abled person's point of view of being flawed, I guess, and allowing us to kind of put that in our own language. That I only have so much capacity to do certain things in a day. And it's not for a lack of skill or effort or, laziness. But we only have a certain amount of energy to do things in a day. This is a useful understanding for myself, and it doesn't really shame the capacity of the person using it. Like, I think there's a misunderstanding in different communities. If you're not in the grave, you don't need support. And that's just not true. We need support. We're humans. We've needed support since even before we were born. We'll need it even after. It also kind of gives a better framework for friendship, too, because it helps explain, hey, I'm not avoiding you, or hey, I still want to hang out, but I have to choose between hanging out or taking care of myself for the next 3 days. The people I feel that love me most and see me most understand. Even if it means that they don't understand it fully, they understand a little bit more about me. And it means all the more when I do message or call or hang out, because no one's forcing me to. I'm choosing to spend spoons on you. It's helpful for them too. They had a rough week, those spoons, that's fine. I have spoons to spare? Sure, maybe I'll drop off groceries this time. Or we can hang out at mine while I do the dishes. And there's so much shame around disability, especially that we don't deserve to be loved or exist, that we have to be useful to make our place, but that's not true. We aren't metal things devoid of life, or, tools to help someone else out. We're people, living, breathing. We deserve love, empathy, even if you don't have the spoons. See you next time. Hi. So I'm trying to make more regular content, but I'm not really sure on what to make. Anything is way too wide of a topic to choose from. So if you have ideas, let me know. Also, if you want to support me, I have a Patreon and an Etsy that I do things on. I'm not going to say it. Okay, bye.